This doesn't look like the Lincoln Tunnel, Sam.
Looks to me like a marginally volatile hostage situation, Max.
Ooh, does this mean we get to kick some puffy white mad scientist butt?
Can't think of a reason not to.
Hello, and welcome back to my seemingly never-ending journey to rank every video game ever, starting with my disgustingly large Steam library. It's been almost exactly 2 years since my last entry, and nothing of global note has happened between then and now, so let's pick up back where we left off. When we started, I had little over 600 games in my queue. That's grown to... oh my. Well, surely that hasn't affected the bracket too. Well, fuck. Why do this, you ask? Because we live in a world where these aren't mutually exclusive images. I'm your host, Double Masked Scientist Stefan, and this is Point of No Return.
Well, that was a pleasantly understated credit sequence.
I enjoyed the cheesy retro ambiance.
What the hell are you talking about, Max?
First up this week, we have Sam & Max Season 3. Sam & Max is a long-running adventure game series based on a comic book. Sam & Max 3 is either the 4th or 13th game in the series, depending on how you like to count episodic releases. This iteration is part of a reboot series from Telltale Games, seen here eating themselves to death. So first things first, the graphics. Early Telltale Games' signature look was taking classic properties like Sam & Max, Jurassic Park, and Back to the Future, and rendering them with gross, low-poly 3D models. The whole game looks so strange. Just look at Sam.
Is that a poop rat?
Sure, his suits used to be overly large in past games, but I always took that as him having to wear ill-fitting suits due to the nature of being a freelance police officer. We'll get to that shortly. The lack of distinct brows leaves most characters looking like a Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Also, Max frequently has strokes that blow out one of his eyes. Everything in the forefront looks terrible, which is a shame since the environmental art direction isn't bad. Sam and Max live on the corner of Straight and Narrow, next to an inconvenience store. Those little touches fit right in with the classic game's feel and tone, but everything else is really an eyesore. The music is similarly bland. The first game had an up-tempo jazzy sound that complemented the wacky mystery Sam and Max were on. Here the main menu doesn't even have music. I genuinely thought I had some kind of technical problem at first. Once you're in the game, the music is serviceable, but not memorable. So who are Sam and Max? Well, they are freelance police, which is a lot like regular police, except they actually solve crimes and don't disproportionately target minorities. Though they do seem to lack any kind of accountability, and Sam has become a raging spaces since the original game.
Does the General want a banana?
I see. Because I resemble your Earth gorillas, you assume I want a banana.
You're not from around here, are you?
So I guess they're really not that different from regular police after all. In this adventure, they're trying to stop the evil alien General Skunkape from destroying New York City using Max's new psychic powers. This is a classic point-and-click adventure game. You point and click to move, inspect, and interact with everything, usually to some twisted backward logic. The twist here is Max's newly found psychic abilities, which unlock over the course of the story. You'll be able to teleport to anyone whose phone number Max has learned, transform into objects by copying them with Silly Putty, or use Future Sight to more or less tell you what you need to do next.
Max, no! Not the Chrysler Building!
That sounds fun. I can hardly wait.
It's all fine, but everything happens so slowly. Being told what I need to do when I figured out the broad strokes 20 minutes ago, and I'm just trying to figure out what archaic sequence of events triggers the next step is more tedious than engaging. Walking everywhere is painfully slow. In reviewing my footage, I actually did find there is a way to move more quickly, but it's by holding down the shift button, and since only animals play point-and-click adventure games with a keyboard, I didn't discover this until I was already done with my time. Overall, Sam & Max 3 feels like a relic of gaming that didn't age particularly well, and probably wasn't all that great even when it launched. I occasionally chuckled at some of the writing, but as a whole, it's not quite there. If you have a tolerance for this type of game or a nostalgia for Sam & Max in particular, it might be worth checking out. It'll slot right between Orcs Must Die 2 and Fortified, making it a solid 2-star game. Next up is Shank 2. Shank 2 is a 2012 side-scrolling beat-em-up game, kinda like Metal Slug, developed by Canadian independent studio Clay Entertainment and published by EA of all people, who you may remember being voted the worst company in America multiple times right around the release of this game, beating out companies that use actual slave labor unapologetically. Way to stick it to the man, gamers! Shank 2's most defining feature is its hand-drawn art style, which looks decent on the game sprites, but is downright awful in the cutscenes, which look like they were pulled from a 90s educational video game or something. In Shank 2, you play as Shank, someone who fights for freedom, but only incidentally. See, all of his rebel friends constantly ask him for help overthrowing the generic military dictatorship, but Shank just seems to be in this for the murder. It strikes me as a kind of odd that all the imagery points to a Latin American dictatorship, but like half the background characters are extremely white. Shank is manly in an 80s action movie kind of way to the point of absurdity. He doesn't really talk, he just murders. But these type of games really aren't about the story. The gameplay is decent. You have a wide variety of combos using light and heavy attacks, projectiles, lunges, and throws. There are several weapons for each slot, each with their own feel, as well as temporary weapons that can be picked up. Lastly, you have a dodge roll that has some pretty generous invincibility frames. Levels are generally pretty short, in the 10 to 15 minute range. Each one features some light platforming, as well as a boss at the end. Getting a solid combo going can feel pretty good, but I also feel like I got my fill after just a couple levels. There's also a survival mode where you defend points against rounds of enemies. Shank 2 doesn't do anything particularly well, but it's okay all around. It feels like a throwback to Newgrounds Flash games more than anything. But still, if you don't already own this, there isn't much reason to grab it over, say, Metal Slug or Alien Hominid or something. In a way, this is a good pairing, as both games are more recent attempts to do older genres of games that aren't very common or popular anymore. Both missed the mark, but neither is terrible. I'm gonna slot this just under Sam & Max since Shank 2 lacks any real charm. I'd like to open up the testing process to you, the viewer. Below is a link to the bracket for this challenge. If there's a game you'd like to see featured sooner rather than later, just leave a comment or message me and I'll bump it up the queue. See you next time.